Hey, team players. Wild card weekend is now in the books. We have had our first advancement of all of our playoff drafts. Very interesting. Look forward to it. Difference between the two sites is really shining through here with DraftKings only letting one of the six through, an underdog you through, and then some advancement pieces, because that's pretty much what everyone's team is that made it by how dominant, particularly Loveland, was in this going through in the wild card weekend. But lots to talk about here. Steelers fire their coach is a little close to home action for Bob and I that we love. And we're going to be doing some more drafts for everyone else, doing the divisional round drafts that come into play here. So fun and exciting show. Bob, where do you want to pick up at?
I want to start with with saying first hi to King here. What's up, King? Hopefully, if you played some best ball, you advanced some pieces. I just think I'd like to start with just how the wild card weekend went. Move a little bit into Mike Tomlin,
Yeah, sure.
And then get into some drafts. But I really want to say that I really do think that outside of the Steelers getting shellacked in the second half of that game,
really just the fourth quarter,
that the majority of the games that we got this weekend were games that we have been wanting as fans of the NFL for a very long time. Games that it was an amazing stat that up until that Eagles game, the team that was down with 2 minutes left ended up winning the games prior. And the Eagles screwed that up, obviously, and the Chargers didn't stand a chance. But the thing that I thought was so interesting about that was just the way that some of these games that, as I said earlier in the week last week, none of the teams were absolutely out of it. There were many things that you could say could have happened in a lot of these scenarios and games. But if you remember us talking about Carolina, for example, and I said on air something to the extent of I'm not counting Carolina out. I don't think that they'll win, but I'm definitely not counting them out of being able to contend. And that game was absolutely nuts. I mean, the fact that they were able to come back and able to perform at that level for as long as they were is a credit to Canales and his head coaching skills. And I think more than anything else, head coaching really did shine through this weekend. MT, what's happening? Go Bears, man. Head coaching did shine through this weekend, and it comes through in many different ways. But I just want to touch on Ben Johnson for a minute.
Ben Johnson was great.
The fact that he was able, and the fact that this, and also the defensive coordinator Allen from the Saints, that the fact that they were able to bear down right in that game, in the second half of that game, and just totally take the air out of Green Bay's tires. Because my belief is that if Matt LaFleur would stop putting a collar on Jordan Love and limiting his capabilities, he could be a 40 touchdown a year kind of quarterback.
I think you're still do that.
He is that good. And the fact is that a head coach who limits the team in the capacity that they were limited in the second half of that game, where the Green Bay Packers that you saw in the first half were not the Green Bay Packers that you saw in the second half.
No, the problem was they came out to 2 3-and-outs because Love missed some passes. It wasn't that he was restricting them, but the reason he restricts Love more than anything is Love gets hurt too much.
And that's true. That's true. But here's the thing is that as a coach, when you see the air starts to deflate, the momentum starts to deflate, the more a team comes back. And at that point in time, when Chicago's just started coming back, the Green Bay had no chance. I mean,
after the second 3-and-out, yeah.
You could have bet the house that at that point in time Chicago would go. Then you come into the game with the Jags and Buffalo, which was probably just the one game where the winning team was just with Josh Allen, where Josh Allen just put that game on his back.
Yeah, Josh Allen was the Bills were not a better team than the Jaguars, but Josh Allen was.
The Jaguars were. I believe that the Jaguars and Liam Cohen, coaching wise, were a better team. But I think when you get to Josh Allen, Josh Allen was just lights out, and you knew that if you give Josh Allen 3 minutes, Josh Allen is going to take 3 minutes. Now, when you look at
all right, man. What you're saying here, MT? Yes, the miss by 4 and the field goal kicker collectively did it. I don't think it's nearly as epic as 28-3.
I think it's up there. I think it's up there for the fact. I think it's up there for the fact that Green Bay was completely in control of that game. Completely in control of that game, and they let it go. Then you go and you look at this Eagles game, and you look at offensive coordination. Saquon Barkley had over 24 attempts in that game, over 100 yards rushing, and A.J. Brown had 3-4 drops in that game. And the fact that your offensive line was injured does play a role in this, but the decision-making that was on that field continuously, right? And that was continuously being made in the last quarter of that game was eye-opening. You have Jalen Hurts throwing into triple coverage when it matters the most, when other guys were open, when the play was developing fine. He had time all day. He was not getting pressured in that game. He had plenty of time, and I think that he had too much time that he was making these decisions that didn't work. And so when it comes to, and by the way, Patullo is out as the offensive coordinator for the Eagles because there is no reason why the Eagles should have been that
guy's definitely fired
offensively. Then you go to the Chargers game, right? And watching that Chargers game, yeah, that was kind of funny when it comes to that. When you look at the Chargers and you look at Harbaugh and the fact that game specifically, I do believe that Vrabel and that defensive coordinator outmatched Harbaugh and the offense there. One, because the offensive line was terrible. Two, Omari and Hampton got a carry and then nothing else in that game due to that injury.
He should never trust.
Three, what was said, and this is, through the grapevine, is that the Chargers had no idea what defenses that the New England Patriots were drawing up in that game. They had a very difficult time reading the defenses in that game. And that's a credit to Vrabel and that coaching staff, because there were plenty of times where that game looked like it could have gone had the coaching gone, or had Herbert gotten a little bit of time, that Herbert would have been able to do something. And that didn't happen because that coaching staff on the defensive side was going after him. And then
let's turn it into the fantasy and off the updates.
Yeah. But I want to talk about the Steelers. I also want to talk about the Steelers too. But I have Drake May, MT says, and Caleb. Do their playoff performances affect the dynasty value? I think a little bit. Here's how I think that is that both of those players are top tier echelon dynasty talents at this moment in time.
They are.
These two players specifically, Caleb Williams in a Ben Johnson-led offense with the weapons that he has, with the offensive line that he has enough time that, credibly speaking, if he does make errors mentally, they can recover from it because there were some mental errors at the beginning of that game. Then when you look at Drake May is just solid. He was solid this year, under control, and the one thing that you got to question with Drake May is just the talent around him. Is this team talented enough to elevate Drake May to the next level? And is Drake May talented enough to elevate the talent that's on the team to the next level from a dynasty perspective? I believe that both of these players, both Drake May and Caleb Williams, are probably top 5 at the quarterback position from a dynasty perspective. And the only ones that you might want, like I said, over him would be a guy like Josh Allen, right? Yep. And maybe even top.
They both use their legs, and that gives them advantages over folks.
And they might even be top 3 at this moment in time in their career from a dynasty.
Oh, no, I still would rather have Daniels ahead of both of them.
And that's a fair assessment to make, but we haven't gotten 2 good years out of Daniels. We've seen
not 2 years out of them either.
We've seen struggles with these quarterbacks, but I think from a value perspective that these are the 2 guys. And Drake May's performance is, I'm not going to take away from Drake May's dynasty value because the Chargers defense is a very good unit. Okay. And running up against a very good unit, of course, you're not going to be throwing for an exceptional amount of yards. But the fact of the matter is that they won that game. They could have lost that game at multiple times, and they won that game. Now, when it comes to this question here, MT, about Jane Daniels or Drake May straight up, Joe you can make a reasonable argument that with coaching staff adjustments that Washington is about to have and or has already had, that given a healthy Jayden Daniels, you might rather have a healthy Jayden Daniels. But the thing is that what I would question about Jayden Daniels is that he's already had multiple injuries so far in his short career so far. And the Patriots offensive line seems to be at this moment better than Washington's offensive line. So where the value for Jayden Daniels would be at is if he can get to that 600, 800 yard rushing perspective. And I just don't think coming off the injury that I'm willing to, from a dynasty perspective, to say that he is as valuable to Drake May. I don't think that they're magnitudes apart by any degree, but I do think that I would question wanting Jayden Daniels over Drake May because they offer the same upside, but Drake May's upside lies with how the coaching staff decides they want to use him in that game. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, from that perspective, I do think that Drake May has a bit more value, but Jayden Daniels is one of those guys that if he puts on a Superman cape and that team is humming, that he's going to be humming as well. So, hey, Jesse, what's happening? So that's how I feel about guys like Daniels and May from a dynasty perspective. I am absolutely, you need to take Devontae Adams there and Stafford there.
Stafford's already off the board.
Okay. Building off the other side then, I reasonably, Joe, and we'll talk a little bit more about the playoffs that just happened and Mike Tomlin, et cetera. You know, I think, Joe, from this perspective, where you're at right now,
I'm going to try to build a New England.
Building out a little bit.
The problem is I don't have any quarterbacks.
You don't have any quarterbacks. So you're going to have to go Bo Nix on this, or you're going to have to go with Texans. To get your
given what I just saw the Texans, I don't know if I'm necessarily opposed to that.
I mean, from a defense
I can do Bo and Sutton, and that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, if you go with Sutton and be careful in this because quarterbacks will get poached, and you don't want to end up with no quarterback. Okay?
Yeah, I get it. I didn't get the best ones, but
I also think Bo Nix is going to have a hard time with the Bills defense. Now, the Bills defense did let some points up to Trevor Lawrence. But from the perspective that all of these games that are on the slate this week, Bills, Broncos, 49ers, Seahawks, Texans, Patriots, Rams, Bears, out of all of those games, the highest scoring game is most likely going to be this Rams-Bears game.
Oh, yeah.
Both of those defenses align really well to what these offenses do well. So I absolutely wouldn't be opposed, even if I have a Rams stack ahead of me, to be building out pieces like Colston Loveland, because I do think that from that perspective, like Colston Loveland, Colby Parkinson at the tight end position in DraftKings are going to be hyper valuable this week. In addition to that, if you're going 49ers, Jake Tongas is on the menu from your tight end perspective. I'd be staying away again from Evan Ingram. I'd be staying away from Dalton Kincaid unless I'm building that Bills Broncos stack. And I want like if I wanted to advance in Evan Ingram, I would be buying Colston Loveland early. You get what I'm saying? Like if I'm buying the Denver side, I need Colston Loveland early, as well as Colby Parkinson. So like I get building out Sam Darnold. I just don't see I think
Sam Darnold, just make sure I had a quarterback.
Make sure you had a second quarterback. I get it.
They're going.
I get it. You need to start getting a little bit more. To be honest with you, if you built out, you're going in multiple different directions here, so be very careful.
I built out two teams, and I just took an extra piece off Seattle. I'm building three teams, really, Bob. I'm building the Rams, I'm building New England, and then I'm going to take some garbage time tight ends on the back end.
Well, you do need Colby Colby Parkinson, and I think you need Loveland to win this round.
Loveland's already gone. Loveland's been gone for a while.
Where did he go? There's no way.
Third round.
Where? I don't even see that.
Well, he might be off the screen, but Loveland went in the third round.
And that tracks. There goes Parkinson. So you will need a Rams tight end. If Mike McDaniel was the Lions OC, would y'all draft Lion players? Yes, absolutely, Jesse. And I would be 1,000%. If Mike McDaniel was the offensive coordinator for Dan Campbell, I am 1,000% buying Jahmyr Gibbs as the number 1 overall pick. Okay. Looking ahead into next year, if McDaniel ends up going to the Lions, you heard it here first. Jahmyr Gibbs, number 1 overall pick. It's not even a question in my mind.
No, it's not.
And you guys know I love Puka. You guys know I love Bijan. You guys know I love Jamar Chase. And you guys know I love JSN. But there's not a reason that I could give that would make it so that Jahmyr Gibbs couldn't be number 1. We see with a fragile player like Devin Achane at times behind a inferior offensive line with inferior quarterback playing, with potentially inferior wide receivers once Tyreek went down, what he could do. And you're telling me that I might be able to get that plus more out of Gibbs? I'm 1,000% buying Gibbs if that's the case. And I am all on board with Jamma as well. From that perspective as well, I do think that depending on where a couple of these coaches land is really going to determine how we attack best ball in the future, right? There's a lot of defensive-minded coaches that are out on the market right now. There's a lot of positions that need to be filled. Ravens, Steelers, Browns, Atlanta, Miami.
I don't think any head coach has been replaced yet.
Tennessee, New York. There's a lot of things that are going to be moving parts, and I think depending upon the way that some of these coaches land, for example, like if the Steelers promote Arthur Smith, that's it. Like that's a death knell for everybody on that team.
Yes, it is. I don't think they're going to do that.
If let's say McDaniel goes to New York, then I think a guy like Scadaboo is wide open once he comes back from injury. He's going to be a little bit low.
Man, this ended exactly the way I wanted
to start. I think that we have to keep our eye on it when we're looking at best ball, when we're looking at going back into the year during redraft season, where these coaches land, because as we saw with Liam Cohen, you guys heard me remark last summer. It's like, well, Baker knows what to do with these players. That's not going to change. Well, it changed significantly. Baker did get injured, but the way that offense was run was much slower. It wasn't as productive. And you saw what Liam Cohen both at the front half and the middle pack of that season when Jacoby Myers came over, what could happen when an offensive-minded coach is leading a team versus, a defensive-minded coach, et cetera, et cetera. So, like, that is really something that I'm going to keep my eye on for that.
So Bob, I'm going to try to build this next one to be Buffalo, Chicago. I'm looking at that team that was built. I like that Buffalo, Chicago build.
So, King, the best lineup, I was able to get through 6 out of 7 teams in the mitten 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 17 in the mitten. We had a good run. The problem is a lot of my teams, as you saw me building them, a lot of my teams have a lot of Jacksonville pieces. A lot of my teams have Eagles pieces. I even had some teams that were Eagles Jacksonville. So I have a lot of dead teams. And I don't think I would be able to give you which one's my best team right now. The George Kittle injury does hurt a lot as well, because I do have a lot of teams that are carrying George Kittle with Brock Purdy. So that hurts. A lot of San Francisco Jaguars as well, based upon how to build. Trevor Lawrence was my quarterback in a lot of situations. This team's got some legs right here. This is Stafford, Corum, Ramondre, Puka, Adams, Ferguson, Parkinson, and Booty. I think that team has a lot of legs depending on how things shake out. This other team, we have Stafford, Ramondre, Blake Corum, Puka, Adams, and Booty and Ferguson. That one has a decent amount of legs. Then we have Bo Nix, Cook, Jaguars players. It's just like, here's the thing. A lot of teams advanced off the back of the Jags.
So many
off the back of Green Bay, and some of those teams
will be in your pod.
The other thing is that a lot of teams that built Buffalo also built Philly. So a lot of the teams that built Buffalo also built Philly, and a lot of the teams that built Buffalo that also built Philly also built a lot of Buffalo back stacks, and those stacks are not as strong against Denver's defense. So there's going to be, if Buffalo ends up making it to the Super Bowl, there might be a couple teams here and there that have a Josh Allen, James Cook with some back stacks, but those teams are most likely only going to advance if they also are carrying Rams and Bears this week, because offensively, those are probably going to be the two strongest teams. I do have a couple, like I said, live for the Super Bowl, but again, they're not going to be full AFC, NFC side. I don't think yet. Let me check out some teams. So this one's an interesting one. This is Stafford, Willett, Caleb, Travion, Swift, Ken Walker, Sharps, Puka, Loveland, Roma Dunze. So if it ends up being New England versus Chicago, we've got a full team there. Josh Allen, James Cook, Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, Colston Loveland. That's another one that's got some legs. If it's Buffalo, whatever, there's another Jags. Again, as you know, I was pretty high on the Jags. Here we have Drake May, Christian McCaffrey, Ramondre Stevenson, DeAndre Swift with a Diggs, Kittle's dead, Burden, Loveland, Booty. So that's a Chicago, New England Super Bowl. So we do have some live Super Bowls. I would have loved to have gotten through a couple of pieces that would have given me a full stack on one side and a full stack on the other side. But that's the thing that happens, though, guys, whenever you're building these teams. And I don't have, again, like I know Mick is one of those guys out there that 150 maxes, and you might be the same guy, same way, King. And I know other content creators are, but I'm not 150 maxing a lot of these tournaments. As we learn the way that these things go, there's a great deal of luck, and I'm really interested to see how these pods shake down, because there, like I said, there are going to be a lot of pods where the Puka team most likely was carried. Like if you had Puka New England, if you had Rams New England, you most likely are not advancing to the next pod, because there weren't enough New England pieces and there weren't enough Rams pieces that would take you to the next level. There are going to be on DraftKings, especially, there are going to be a lot of Chicago teams that advance,
because DraftKings only lets one through
because of
it's almost all Chicago.
There's going to be a lot of Chicago. There's going to be a lot of Dallas Goddard-based teams that get through as well, which means that those teams most likely built if the Dallas Goddard team gets through, they most likely built Josh Allen on the opposite side of an Eagles stack. So there's going to be a lot of interesting there's going to be a lot of interesting ways that these teams are calibrated. So for me, like, it doesn't matter what my best team is, because some of my best teams actually didn't make it. Some of my best teams didn't make it because they didn't have Bears. Some of my best teams, like my teams that had Seattle and my teams that had Denver and my teams that had all those players on it that I showed you in the broadcast and everything, did not advance because I didn't have Chicago or the Jags built on that, right? If you backstacked Dobbs and Christian Watson on top of a Jordan Love, that will have advanced most likely a Buffalo team. Like if you had Buffalo, Green Bay, but now you're only dealing with the Buffalo pieces, and those Buffalo pieces aren't as strong against Denver's defense. So ideally, when it comes to this, there are most likely, and this is there are going to be teams that have full Super Bowls on two sides of the ball making it through, because maybe they went New England, Chicago, right? Maybe they went New England, Rams. And that's very possible as well. But the Rams pieces, like if you went Devontae Adams and Puka, and you didn't get Kyron, but you got Stafford, you might have advanced. That might have been, and then you built in a couple of those Green Bay pieces to help you advance that. Or you had Ramondre, but if you had Travion didn't advance you. You had to have Ramondre, right? And so, like a lot of these scenarios that we're talking about are one of those things that that can happen when it comes to pod luck. We talked about that pod luck is that, from that perspective, you do need to have a lot of it. So here's, for example, I'm going to read you one of my teams that made it through. Okay. So the team that made it through, I'm ready, King, man. I want to hear it. I'm going to give you this lineup as well. And I'm disappointed I don't have Christian Kirk in this lineup. So this is a lineup that definitely has some legs. It's Brock Purdy, Juwan Jennings, George Kittle, again, dead. Jaden Higgins, Woody Marks, Dalton Schultz, CJ Stroud, and Ken Walker. That's in a pod. My pod is up, but I can't see who we have yet. I'd love to see who the other players have. So we'll have
you probably won't be able to get that till later tomorrow.
We won't be able to see that, but the pod, like if I'm matched up against teams that carried a bunch of Jags like I have, well then there's also a possibility too that you're in pods with other Jacksonville players, and all you'll need is one live player to advance this week.
There's a possibility of that,
because
although most of the pods have 8 in them for the second round, but
not on DraftKings. That has 6.
Oh, there you go.
DraftKings has 6. King, love this. Stafford, James Cook, Puka, Shakir, Parkinson, Knox, and then Kyron. This Super Bowl is so live. And here are the main reasons why this is live. Are you ready? Puka can beat Buffalo's secondary. He can beat them. But James Cook absolutely can get, if they experience too much pressure from Jared Verse and Young on the edges for Buffalo, if this ends up being the Super Bowl, James Cook is an absolutely a good play to run between the tackles. Shakir and Knox are those quick routes, right? If Josh Allen's struggling, he's going to get the ball out quick to Shakir and Knox. I like that. Parkinson, not a great play against Buffalo. Tight end position is not built to play well for Buffalo against Buffalo, so I do question how well that's going to be productive. And then
King, I'm pretty sure to your point, that is a 1 out of 1 lineup. That's kind of the cool part.
I love it. I absolutely love that. Family, I love that you're here today, because that game was one of the best games of the week. We saw a team in the Jaguars play really well.
That in the Saturday games.
And lose track of defense later in the game. Josh Allen did Josh Allen things. And I believe when we were discussing this last time is that in order for them to win, Josh Allen would have to be Josh Allen of old, right? And the fact that they were able to do that is a testament to how dedicated Josh Allen is as a player, right? He's out there and he's got what feels like bum ass wide receivers all the time. And he's out there throwing 11 passes to Khalil Shakir. And he was open
in the 3 position this time. Bob it's talking Bills. I'm going to try to get the Bills stack.
Shakir was open the whole game. And the fact is congrats to the Bills. Hats off to the Bills. Hats off to the Jags too. Family, I'm happy for you. Crushed a lot of, like I said, it crushed a lot of my best ball teams. But I'm okay with that, because it makes for a more interesting kind of situation.
Is Buffalo the night game?
I don't. Let me check. Buffalo is the early game, 4:30. Josh has to have like a significant amount of injuries here.
I don't care. I don't care. I'm picking him. He's going to be my third pick.
Hey, King, are you in this draft? It's impossible to get Puka. King, is this on draft? Did you have Puka, Cook, Kyren, and Stafford on DraftKings or Underdog? I love this because it's veritably impossible to get this team. This team is absolutely one of the most unique setups from like a round perspective that I've seen. Especially
you had to have done it early.
Getting all of those. I'm going to ask you this, King, and I'm not sure when you got this team. Did you get this team when the Rams were locked into where the Rams were positioning themselves for the 1 seed? Because if this was the team that was built with the 1 seed, it's got a little bit more legs.
Josh Allen goes first overall.
People might have built this out a little bit differently earlier, but if you had been able to build this out in like say the Mitten 2 or the Mitten 3, it's definitely a unique setup. I was able to get a team in DraftKings with a bunch of Rams, but because Devontae Adams didn't perform the way we needed it to, Corum didn't perform that way, so it was a little bit of a struggle. But the game this weekend that I think this Bills and Broncos game is very intriguing. I think James Cook sets up really well to perform well in this. Now, as we said, statistically speaking, the Broncos do limit quarterbacks who are rushing quarterbacks. But the fact of the matter remains is that if they get inside the 5, it's going to be Josh Allen's ball. And they're just going to push. And you saw it. They're just going to push Josh Allen. Gilliam is going to just push. And I think that that's going to really put Buffalo on top against Denver. Like I said, I think Buffalo, whoever won that Buffalo Jags game is going to, I think, win the AFC. And so I still stick with that, and I still have Buffalo winning over Denver. But again, Bo Nix can do Bo Nix-like things. Coker, hold or sell high in Dynasty. I don't think anybody's buying high on Coker in Dynasty. Yeah, King, opening day making that is like chef's kiss, man. Love it. What a great lineup opening day. I'm really curious what pod when the pods come out, King, let's talk, because I'm really curious how your pod will look and to see how many more Puka teams are in your pod. Because if there's a lot of Puka teams in your pod, then you might need another piece to really take it. Yeah, King, that was me too.
He's got so much value.
Early on,
value. He's got the win.
Early on, I had a lot of Buccaneers. Joe had a lot of
Mike Evans.
A lot of Lions, a lot of Buccaneers. So back to this question, family. Coker's performance over the last several weeks with Bryce Young is not eye-opening, but is what we wanted out of Jalen Coker when we all drafted Jalen Coker in fantasy this year. Those performances are what we wanted out of him. So I want to say that Coker is a sell, but also he's not a sell high. A 31-point performance is nice, but everybody still knows that he's still attached to Bryce Young, and he's going to be attached to Bryce Young one more year. And we know that Bryce Young has a lot of development left to do. But under Dave Canales,
that's a nice way of saying it.
Under Dave Canales, he's making progress. His counting stats are getting better. While he's not the best, his counting stats are getting better. His advanced metrics are slightly either growing or plateauing just slightly. So there's reason to believe that if that offensive line can stay healthy all year and they can figure out what the running back situation is, that with Tet there and Coker there healthy, if they stop navigating this Xavier Legette situation and just kind of figure out where those pieces are going, I really do think that Jalen Coker has a lot of value. If I could get a high second round, this is the thing. If I can get a high second rounder for him or pair him up again to try to get more picks and continue to get more picks to get into the top 2 or 3 this year of picks, that's what I would try to do. And if I can't do that, I'd be trying to get next year's loaded draft class. I'd be trying to get a couple more picks in that draft class that are pretty high, right? Because Jalen Coker does have a really high ceiling, But because he's attached to Bryce Young, there are games where Bryce Young is only going to pass the ball 23 times, and he might only complete it for like 145 yards, right? But there's reason to believe that there could be more development going up into the next season. So with Tet there and Coker there, I'm holding on to Coker unless I can get a high second round pick for him. And even then, I'm not entirely sure that like I want that high second round pick for Coker, because Coker's already had a chance to develop within the system. They're not changing the system. Panthers made the playoffs. They're not changing the system. So there's like I said, there's reason to believe that things will get better for Coker. And I do think that there are games ahead for him where he's going to be utilized, and they saw the ways that they can utilize him. And I think that Xavier Legette will be the guy that's on the outs looking in rather than Jalen Coker going into next season. So I'm buying Jalen Coker depending on the price, but if you want to sell him for a high second, I don't really have a problem with that. And here's the thing, family. We know your rugby league won the premiership, but your team won. But like I said, it is perfectly in the realm of possibilities that Buffalo is going to go to the AFC Championship. We have said this before over and over again, is that this Denver defense is good, but it's not as good as people want to make it out to be. The counting stats look good, but also the offenses in the AFC West aren't really high-performing offenses for the course of the year. And so you got to look at it from that perspective as well, in that there's a framework that you can write where Buffalo might win this game by 7. And the only thing that's stopping Buffalo from winning this game will be a monumental, legendary performance from Bo Nix. Okay? Bo Nix will have to play lights out. And if you look at it, if you look at it from another perspective here, the one thing, if you are going into these playoff best balls and you are drafting Denver players, the one Denver player that I am highly interested in would be Marvin Mims. Okay. Marvin Mims, the way that Parker Washington was utilized in that game against Buffalo is how Denver similarly likes to use a player like Mims. Mims doesn't have as high of a snap count as Parker Washington, but when you get to moving players around on the field, that's where you get to mess with Buffalo, right? Because Ingram's going to be a non-factor. They will ice out Ingram. He will be a non-factor. And then it comes down to how they're going to open up this defense, because they can get after the quarterback. They can get pressure on the quarterback, and they're very good. And so when I look at that, will RJ Harvey have a pretty good game? I think RJ Harvey will probably have like at least 4 or 5 catches in this game. And so if I'm building out players from Denver to have, I definitely want RJ Harvey. Cortland Sutton, I don't know how much that he'll do to really move the needle in this game. Hold on, I want to check something. So just going back and looking at the stats from this past week and just going off of, the targets here, right? Is that, again, with the Jags here, Parker Washington had 12 targets, okay? Moving him all around the field, getting him into positions where he's going to be in mismatches. I love that. Marvin Mims profiles really well for something like that. Then you go down to the actual wide receivers who are not moving very much around the field. Jacoby, Brian Thomas Jr. 4 targets, 1 catch for Jacoby, 2 targets for BTJ, 2 catches. Brent Strange had 5 targets, 2 catches, 9 yards. So this is a very big concern that if you're in these tournaments, right, and you go and you're playing Denver, that there's a good chance that you're going to get iced out of a lot of points here, because Buffalo's defense is strong. And the fact of the matter is that, yes, Trevor Lawrence threw for 3 touchdowns, and those 3 touchdowns went to ETN, Parker Washington, and Brian Thomas Jr., but he still only completed 18 of 30 passes. That's not that's
yeah.
Right. And for 207 yards. So like, it's almost as if it's like the bend don't break defense kind of mentality here. And then you look on the other side of the board, Shakir was 12 for 12, which is insane, for 82 yards, 12 for 12. Right. And I really think the framework is there for Denver to be very disappointed from that perspective. So I'm in on them. I do think James Cook can go nuclear. He was a disappointment this week. Screwed up a couple of my DFS lineups, but I do think that he can go nuclear. Ted Coker for Garrett Wilson, BTJ. Yes, the guy's a Panthers fan. I just took over this team. It won, and this guy ditched it. I mean, honestly, Ted and Coker feel like the players that you want to own in that situation. I mean, it's a shame to say.
Well, one of the other, you want to get that rookie running back they had last year who tore his ACL up. If you want to go all Carolina. But the other thing with Carolina is they're going to have a first place schedule and they're going to suck. I want to divest from Carolina as hard as possible right now. This might be the peak of selling coach.
Well, so that's the other thing, guys, is that because they won the division, they're going to have a first place schedule next year. Okay. Yeah. So that's,
you think they're going to Seattle and have a good time?
So if you want to divest, out of Ted, out of Coker, that's fair.
And they also play the AFC North, which has better defenses than offenses. Cleveland could even shut them down, and they're the worst placed team in it.
The thing that I think is funny about this family, where you said it's Brisbane Broncos, Buffalo facing the Broncos this week. So, I mean, a little bit of serendipity in the air. I really, like I said, I have spoke many things into existence, manifested many different things, but there's a framework that come Monday, okay, come next Monday, there's a chance that the AFC Championship will be Bills Texans, and the NFC Championship will be Seahawks Bears. There's a real possibility that is going to be what it's going to look like. And so you have those two teams, and the Bills, I do think, can beat the Texans. And I think the Bears, quite honestly, could beat the Seahawks. Like I said, I think the Seahawks are
I think it's Texans Rams. I mean, I kind of feel like that's going to be the case. But if that AFC champion, I think the winner of the Rams-Chicago game is going to the Super Bowl.
Like I said, I think there's a high probability that happens. I still like Seahawks, but I do think that. And the thing is, the Seahawks defense is very, very strong, Joe. And
no doubt.
And the fact is that the Bears, their offense is super strong, but their defense is not there. And the Seahawks can score against poor defenses. And so the fact remains is that, like you go back, and I'm just going back here, Seattle, Washington on November 2nd, Darnold threw for 330 yards and 4 touchdowns. I think people are forgetting what Sam Darnold can actually do in a game, because over the last couple of weeks, he's been very pedestrian, and hasn't played and hasn't had to play with a big amount of vigor, because they've played teams that, like the Panthers or the Colts, and the Niners here. And again, here, you look at the Seattle play the Rams a couple weeks back. He's over here throwing 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions on 34 pass attempts. When they played the 49ers just recently, he had 198 yards and was really efficient, 20 for 26, right? No touchdowns. But like, people are forgetting that he has, what's up, Jamie? What's happening? That he has the chance that if it ends up being, and like I said, when it comes down to these playoff best balls, we talked about this, is that there is a story that you can write where there could be the ugliest playoff matchup that you can ask for from a best ball perspective, and you might only need one player to win it, and that's the Seattle-Houston Super Bowl. If you've got a Seattle-Houston Super Bowl, there's a real possibility that there will be minimal amounts of Seattle that have made it through the second round, guys. So, like, let's think about this from this perspective before we get back to this question here from family, is that if you drafted Seattle in the last grouping of mittens and whatnot, if you drafted Seattle, you most likely paired up Seattle with, let's say, Eagles with that draft slot. You might have started to build out a New England with that draft slot as well, where JSN was going, or you might have built through some Jags. The only way you advanced Seattle pieces was if you built out a Jags Seattle Super Bowl. And how many Seattle pieces did you honestly take in a Super Bowl like that, right? You probably took Ken Walker, you probably took Charbonnet, you probably took JSN, and you probably took Darnold. But you might not have even taken Darnold in that Super Bowl because Trevor Lawrence would have been the better quarterback option if you were only going one quarterback. So there's a real possibility that if Seattle makes it to the Super Bowl, now there are going to be teams that probably have a full lineup of Seattle, but because they had the bye, they would have had to play with either the a back
They had
stack.
Jacksonville pull them through.
They would have had to play with a backstack of Chicago or a backstack of the Jags. And they most likely played with the backstack of the Jags, right? So now they're going to have to rely on all those Seattle players to make it through 3 rounds or 2 more rounds, right? This week, next week, and then to the Super Bowl. So there's a very likely possibility that by the time we get to the Super Bowl, if Seattle is in the Super Bowl, there is a high chance that the only player from the Seattle side of the ball that you'll be seeing on teams, it's not going to be JSN. There's a high probability that it's going to be Ken Walker or Zach Charbonnet on the Seattle side of the ball if Seattle ends up making the Super Bowl for these best ball playoffs. And the reason being is that player, those 2 players, could have probably been built out with a Buffalo. They probably could have been built out with a who's the other side? They might have been able, like I said, the only other team that would have been able to be built out with was Buffalo, because the only other players that would have scored that would have advanced would have been Josh Allen and Shakir, right? Texans and Patriots, that was like the worst advancement that anybody could have hoped for from that perspective, in the fact that the Texans, you lose Nico. People had Nico drafted super high. You lose Nico. He might not play this upcoming week. The odds that you drafted Christian Kirk over Jaden Higgins is not high. And you most likely had Dalton Schultz, who underperformed. And then if you had a Patriots stack on that end as well,
How did Drake May fall to the 8th round in this?
I'm not disagreeing that would be a play. That's where it's at.
I went all in to make a Chicago and Houston stuff, and I only lost Collins and Burden, but I got pretty much every other person who would be in that game.
Then we look at this. Then we look at the Patriots, right? And we're just talking about the scenarios here. Drake May was not one of the top 3 scoring quarterbacks on the week. Ramondre and Travion were not one of the top 3.
No, they didn't score.
Travion wasn't high.
And I guess you project they're not going to score against Houston either, which is why I think Houston's going to win.
There's a chance that a Hunter Henry was built on the back end of a Rams, that Booty was built on the back of the Rams. So you might have some like I have some Rams with some Patriots that could have been built out here. But the fact is that most likely speaking, this game specifically, no matter who wins this game, this Patriots Houston Super Bowl, this is probably going to be the least scored game on the slate. Okay. And so if whoever advances from that, you're going to need to have the players on the opposite side of the ball that are really making points.
Like,
and that's going to be Bears or Rams.
Yeah.
And that's going to be like, and then if the Rams don't make the Super Bowl, there's a likely scenario that whoever advances, that you might only need Josh Allen.
Those Niners would be a fun NFC championship. There would be so many points in that.
The Pats truly had one great win all year. Buffalo in Buffalo, lost the Steelers, beat the Panthers. This is what I'm saying, is that they're a solid team with they're a well-coached team. And
they haven't played anyone. I think Houston's beating them. I think Houston's going up there and winning in New England.
And the thing about Denver, family, is that Denver's here. Let's take a look at it. When we look at Denver,
beat their division, which in of itself is challenging.
Denver beat the Packers. They beat the Chargers in the last week of season, so it doesn't really matter. They beat the Chiefs. They beat the Commanders in a close game. They beat the Chiefs again in a close game. They beat the Raiders in a close game. They beat the Texans in a close game. They smacked around the Cowboys earlier in the season. They beat the Giants in a close game, in a comeback game. They won over the Jets 13-11 earlier in the season. They beat the Eagles 21-17, shellacked the Bengals, lost to the Chargers earlier in the season, and then beat the Titans and lost to the Colts as well early in the season. But if you're looking at the back half of the season, all of these matches are close games, except for that Jaguars game where they performed, I would say, poorly for most of the game, but Bo Nix still threw 47 passes. And that's the thing about Bo Nix. They're going to let him do what he does, right? He's going to have like 38 attempts in this game, right? While I think that they can be the worst number one seed, I
don't think it matters when Josh Allen shows up. I think Josh Allen is going to win.
So what do I think about Bills, Patriots, Seahawks, Rams advancing, thinking about parlaying those for money line? I think that's fair, Jamie.
I don't think New England can score against that Houston defense.
I would probably do, and it's weather dependent here because this is the first time that Houston has won a road game in the playoffs. And it's also the first time that Houston has won a game in temperatures under 35 degrees.
Yeah, but that defense travels, and that defense was amazing.
However, here's what I'll say. The Steelers had 3 turnovers against C.J. Stroud, and the offense did nothing. I do not think that would be the case for New England's offense.
I do.
I think New England's offense will be able to score a touchdown or two. The thing about Houston is they haven't let up over 17 points in a game, like all season, right? Not all season, but like on average, right? Mm-hmm. So you look at it and you say, if Houston ends up putting up 16, 17 points, game over.
Houston also did the thing that they hadn't done all year. They started running the ball.
This is really going to help.
Lets the defense sit on you. They can easily beat the Patriots. So I would not take the money line of the Patriots. And I'm not sure I want to touch the Bears game.
I would take
the over on it. I don't want to take the over in the Rams game.
Honestly, Jamie, if you got like $5, I'd probably do a Bills, Houston, Seahawks, Bears, because that probably has a better payout. I think that
I like the Houston wins it all bet right now, though. That's got some decent juice on it.
Interesting. And as I said earlier, before the playoffs even began, you look at the teams here that are left on this list, and you look at the teams advancing, right? And you look at how good the defenses are. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defenses that at some point in the season have been statistically one of the better defenses with X amount of things, right? At one point in time, the Patriots were a great rush defense, and that happened again this past week. So, getting healthy matters. Doing that matters. Joe, let's rack up one on Underdog, see how it plays out on Underdog.
All right. Well, the challenge with the Underdog is, does it say we're actually legally allowed to play there? Because their draft thing for locator.
You got to go through your phone, remember?
But there's also no way we're going to time where both of us are in the same one with only 4 people drafting.
Yeah. Well, I can rack up a mitten returns. I'll do that. I can do that.
Yeah, rack it up and then
and we'll show it on the screen here.
Yeah. You'll have to send me the link for it, and then I'll be able to put it up.
I'll just put it up through mine. No biggie.
Oh, that works too.
All right. Draft now. Oh.
So one of the things that you saw obviously throughout the show here, me doing a couple of test ones for you guys, is that to me the Bears are wildly undervalued. And if it wasn't until that they clearly understood I was taking every Bear that people started jumping up to do it. But the Bears are undervalued especially in DraftKings, because DraftKings requires you to do a tight end, and they just outright Loveland's more valuable in DraftKings than he is on Underdog. He just is. So
yeah, and I think mixing a little bit around here, especially when there's only there's only 4 games here to work with, so there's a lot of combinations, a lot of possibilities. Think about which one holds the most potential for you, and
Jamie, as a general betting rule, I recommend never go above 3 legs on a parlay, and never combine
in this scenario though, there's 4 games. I think in this scenario, it's fine.
Winning's still winning, and that matters.
I would agree.
Well, you always get in. This is something that I've done a lot. Is you do a parlay for the 2 Saturday games, and then you just make your Sunday bet a little bit bigger. Not crazy bigger, not twice as big anything, but a little bit bigger.
All right. So here we went Devontae and Stafford. Puka went 3rd, which I'm really surprised with. That would have been a blessing if I could have got Puka and Devontae Adams. That was wild. But going Josh Allen, James Cook at this point, like I said,
dude, hitting an 11-1, Jamie, congratulations. That is you'll never get another one of those in your life. Celebrate that. Enjoy it.
What was it, Jamie? I'm really curious. Let us know what those legs were. Because I was very close to hitting one too, but obviously because it's a parlay, I didn't. It's the way it goes. All right, so we got CMC JSN at that top of that stack. CMC falling to the second round in these 14 drafts. It makes sense because most people don't believe that San Francisco will advance. A little bit interesting build there. Sam Darnold on the back end of that Buffalo, so already building Seattle.
So the fact that the Niners-Seattle game was so low scoring when it mattered for both of them, everyone just assumes it's going to be the exact same game again. And Bob, give me a reason why it wouldn't be. It was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say that we're gonna build out. We're gonna do something fancy dancy here. So I think that I don't see a reason. The Seattle Niners game with Kittle out, I think it changes the framework for how that game is going to be approached. And the thing is that they haven't been excellent or efficient in running the ball. So I do think that that's going to be slightly problematic. Just slightly problematic in this scenario. So if they can't get Christian McCaffrey rolling, there's no reason for me to believe that things are going to be vastly different at all, So it's something that I definitely want to keep my eye on. All right, so we're going to go, because I think this is going to be the highest scoring game on the slate. We're going to.
Oh, I got you. So it was a very, if it's only a plus 800 leg, that's a very conservative money line. Nothing wrong with that, though. Personally, though, Jamie, I do not like inflating props into money lines. And the reason for it is prop bets at sports books are their most profitable plays. And I don't want to do what they're going to make the most money on. So the spreads and the over-unders are their most bet upon lines. They're also their most even ones. Mm-hmm. Props, they take home like crazy. So that being said, they're also put so many of them out there, they put a dud or two that you can take advantage of. But as a consistent long-term betting metric, much safer going with the spreads over-unders or money lines and over-unders.
Mm-hmm. No, I would agree with that as well. So I missed out on Colson Loveland. That kind of sucks. That's fine. I wanted Loveland.
Did you get well, you don't need a tight end in DraftKings though, or under.
No, you do not. You do not need a tight end in Underdog. But I think Colson Loveland again could be a lights out player in a tournament.
Oh, dude, yeah, absolutely. Like I think that basically having The thing with that Rams game is, that Puka is getting the ball. You know that Adams is getting the ball, and Kyron is.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who else is on the Rams. Their tight end is a complete just roll the dice and see what happens. So I would never take a Rams tight end.
I would because there's leverage to be had.
See, I think you're more likely to get the leverage in taking Higgins from Houston.
Well, because I have both the Rams and the Chicago quarterbacks here, I want to get, and I have a piece from Buffalo and New England, and I have the running backs here. I do want to get, I want to build out who I think is going to make it to the next level here. So we have 1, 2.
See, Bob, I'm actually looking at this as your advancement piece is coming out of that. Your advancement lineup is coming out of that Chicago game. It is. So you're basically just getting a back end insurance piece in case you miss out on somebody. And I think
Nico's still there, like I said, he's not
going to possibility quite well.
All right. Higgins isn't available right now. I'm going to build Mims for everything that I said.
Well, Higgins has already been drafted. What are they doing on Underdog?
So Underdog being 10 rounds, I'm not quite sure. And this is the other thing. I'm not quite sure that I have a full Super Bowl here. I have to double check. I think I took a couple pieces from a lot of different teams, and I don't know if I have a full team.
Well, as you go through that, I want to hit on Jamie's point. Ferguson is an interesting point for moving forward. It's the tight end position in that offense typically does perform pretty well. So I understand wanting to invest there. And in general, it's always going to be a high-scoring offense, so there's never anything to say that's wrong with it. And, he's definitely not going to get the buzz that he should. He's probably going to be a good mid-tier guy to pick up. I don't have a problem with that line of thinking at all. And again, I treat him as he's probably in the upper half of that blob of tight ends that, you're looking for 3 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. That I'm not taking him before the 8th round, but I would definitely consider him when he drops beyond that.
So we do have a couple live Super Bowls in this instance in time. So we've got Stafford, Corum, Devontae Adams, Colby Parkinson with either Ramondre, with
so you're Rams New England,
with Ramondre, Shakir, or Mims.
So so New England or Denver. Okay.
Yeah, New England or Denver. I didn't build out enough Chicago pieces because they all I didn't want all of them got taken. So that's something to kind of keep your eye on. So let's rack up another one because these are so short.
And can you do the thing where you blow up your screen to make it more zoomed in?
I don't know how to do that.
Fair enough.
I don't know how to do that. All right. So we're going to pull up another one here. Let me see if I can blow it up a little bit here to see.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about.
There we go. We're winning.
Puka
I think that if I think that San Francisco's winning that game, I'm absolutely drafting Tongas because he's the piece, especially on especially on Underdog, where people are not drafting a tight end outside of Colston Loveland or Colby Parkinson. There's reason to believe that that's your best move, right?
Yeah.
That your best move is to move into something like that, to get an advancement, like to get some weird advancement happening. Now, the other thing here too is that while I do like Puka so much, and I think his matchup is great, that getting JSN also I think could be epic, right? He went 6 for 84 the last time they met. So I do think that has a lot of legs, especially on DraftKings. But I can't pass up Puka. You just can't do it.
Family, you're right. He didn't say Henry, but Henry's definitely getting drafted. He's the second type.
Yeah, Henry as well. And again, that's the thing with Underdog is that Henry, Schultz, all of those guys, like this could absolutely be a Rams Houston team. But the problem is with Nico's concussion, it's like, well, what ones do you actually want to build?
See, you can only, in my opinion, you take Collins if you're already comfortable with this round's wide receivers, because it really your Super Bowl crossover. Because if you take him, he has to drop, and he has to be.
Collins got drafted in like the 9th round because of the concussion, man.
See, ninth round, I think, is the beginning of where you can look at it.
It's only 10 rounds.
I'm also totally okay taking Higgins and Kirk.
Yeah, I mean, there's a framework for that, absolutely. So here, last time Christian McCaffrey went all the way down here, so we're obviously going to get something different here. They're going to leave him with James Cook. Does he not take James Cook?
So you're going to get at least one of your Rams.
Not the one I wanted.
No, but you might get Stafford Kyron.
Yeah.
You get Stafford Kyron. How about that?
James
so that's
Cook,
amazing. RJ Harvey goes in the 2nd round on underdog.
James Cook is still there, Joe. James Cook is still there.
I would take Kyron and Cook then.
I'm actually
going to get Stafford, but
I need to take Stafford here to give myself a quarterback.
So
we're gonna leave Kyron on the board for the Josh Allen guy. Because like I said, I mean, Kyron isn't the most efficient runner in the league right now.
I don't love that draft strategy. You basically just told him to build the same one as you. I don't like that.
We're going to get different. Don't worry about it.
Thank you, Jamie. Hit that like and subscribe button.
All right. So here's where we go with this one. See, and that's the thing, like Stafford, sure, like I could have passed on Stafford, but I wasn't sure he's going to make it back. You know what I'm saying?
No, I got you. The quarterback fear is real in your soul.
He could have taken Stafford as well.
Well, anyone could take him.
Right. But he also passed on a couple of guys that he maybe should.
Do you have your team sorted right now?
What do you mean sorted?
Or do you just have the ADP ranks?
I just have the ADP ranks up here. All right, so we got that action happening.
It's just amazing to me that Collins is still 16th in their ADP.
Yeah, because of the injury, right?
Yeah, he should be way lower. He should be in the 40s.
All right, so we went with Shakir and Corum at the turn there. That gives us a full Super Bowl from both sides of the ball.
Full Super Bowl and 5 picks. It's pretty solid.
So 5 picks in. Now, is it the best Super Bowl? No, because I think
you need some advancement pieces, and you need them now. So you better start picking up some Bears.
Yeah, trust. That's
just saying, dude.
No, trust me. That's what's going to get queued up here, and then I'm going to take another late Buffalo guy and another late Rams guy. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
we're going to take some Bears. I don't think Woody Marks is a bad play either.
No, like I said, Woody Marks might be like the secret under the cover weapon
as an advancement guy.
He was in both my rosters, or all my rosters rather, that advanced from there. But both my ones that were just earth-shattering, Woody Marks was a part of.
Mm-hmm.
I was big on picking him up late.
Woody Marks was a great pick from that perspective. So there goes DeAndre Swift. So we're going to take Colston Loveland for advancement. We're going to take Colston Loveland for advancement. And we're also, I could take
Henderson. What about Kyrie? What about Caleb?
I'm taking Caleb here because that gives you that unlocks a potential Chicago Buffalo Super Bowl. I don't love Colston Loveland in a Buffalo Super Bowl though, but that gives us almost a full Super Bowl for Chicago Buffalo as well. We take one more Chicago piece. We do need to take one more Buffalo and one more Rams piece though. So the question,
I see DJ Moore there, but I think I'd rather have Burton.
Yeah, Burton didn't do too much with his targets here.
That is true.
I think I have 3 picks left, and I'm probably going to take 3 out of these 4 guys, Joe.
Well, there you go.
Kalmanungai is on the table too. I think that's a possibility. Like I said, I think Marvin Mims is going to be one of the higher scoring players this week.
I feel like Marvin Mims is too. I mean, he could be. I mean, and this is all about ceilings. Obviously, it's best ball, but he also could go over. You know, I mean, the thing with Sean Payton is he gets cute, and again, I think Denver's gonna get rolled. I just think Allen just walking up there and handing the ball off and then running himself like crazy.
There's a full possibility that something like that happens.
Yeah.
You know, like the question here is, do I go 2 Buffalo or do I just go 2 Chicago guys in a row?
I do it all the time. You got Caleb and Loveland. That's perfect. You throw Manungai on, you have a Bears by themselves Super Bowl.
That's true. That's true. That is true. I might do that. The only piece I'm missing there would be Cole Kmet or
Swift.
Or Swift.
But who else is going to have that done?
I mean, if it's Chicago Buffalo, then I have more than enough pieces.
You have the best pieces because you'll have Cook.
If it's Rams Buffalo, I still have a full Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You're right. So taking the Chicago guys instead of the Rams guys is probably the better play here.
Yeah, that's what I would do, yeah.
There goes Jake Tongas, Christian Kirk. That's an interesting team there. Sorry for everybody watching. I didn't go back. That's a Houston with Dalton. I see Dalton Kincaid means nothing to me these 2 rounds. I mean, like he is.
Yeah, Kincaid and Coleman were wild disappointments this year in the world of fantasy football.
Because you want to see this. You want to see this. I'm going to show you this. This is a wild story to write here. Look at this team. For everybody watching right now, take a look at this team. And Jamie said, hit like, follow, subscribe. We would appreciate that. Taking a look here, this guy's got New England, almost a full New England and a full New England and a full San Francisco stack. This is wild. So
Love it.
Tongas, Pearsall, Jennings.
Dude, that's calling your shot. You hit it, you win it.
Purdy, McCaffrey, and then Drake May, Diggs, Stevenson.
The problem with that build, the number one problem with that build is you're playing the 2 best defense this week. You ain't going to advance. Like if you're going to do a build like that, you got to do it in a high scoring game. You got to do it with Chicago or Buffalo. And Buffalo, really Chicago or Denver.
I think probably
Rams or Denver is how I would do that.
Let's do another one, and this will be the last one of the day. This will be the last one of the day. But the thing that I'm very curious about,
because he got you out of the first round,
is building 5, because it's 10 rounds, building 5 and 5, building 5 Chicago, 5 Rams with 5 Seattle.
Well, you're never going to get 5 Rams. You're not getting that.
You can.
You can't get the 5 Rams.
You can. So the question here is, do I want JSN or do I want Puka?
Are you first?
Yeah.
Take Allen. Try to do Buffalo, Chicago. Because Buffalo has enough cheap pieces at the end. Yeah, you're risking Cook has to flutter back to you, but they have enough cheap pieces at the end that kind of peg in right.
Yeah, but honestly, Puka and JSN break the slate. Like, unless it's hyper cold.
If you need Puka and Chicago, you're basically guaranteed to get out of the first round when that becomes a shootout.
It's also going to be cold there. So, like, it might be like below 0. So that's going to be a problem.
I would go Buffalo, Chicago in the build. I think you can get the
I just did a Puka team for the fam. So we'll build Josh Allen first overall here.
Because again, if Cook slides back to you,
yeah, there's a chance. There's a chance he slides back. There's Puka at 3 again. Like I said, it's not
taking a Ram in the second round. Probably Devontae.
He's gonna have time to build a Puka Devontae, and having Puka Devontae is probably going to be the death knell when there's the Bears. So like there goes Cook. That's not nice. Why would you not play nice there, Nova? All right. Okay, so he's building Buffalo Rams. He's just going to build Rams, Puka, and Devontae.
Dude, you might get McCaffrey in terms of advancement pieces, and then just build whoever after there. Take McCaffrey.
Well, we'll see.
I would do McCaffrey for sure, and then the best receiver on the board, who's definitely not Collins.
Well, I think I have to take. He's not the best receiver on the board, but I have to take Shakir with the way that guy's building.
Fair enough. But McCaffrey's just a wide receiver advance piece to replace Cook for the first round.
I do think that he can do well against Denver's defense. This guy's clearly building Denver, Seattle. He can stay in his lane. This guy got the mega stack, Puka, Devontae, Adams, Stafford. That's going to be tough to beat.
Did you guys say Kyron? Yeah, someone did. Okay.
Yeah, that's going to be tough to beat that stack there.
That's why you got to take the other side of it with Chicago and hope it's a shootout. You can match them shot for shot.
I could continue.
I would take Lovejoy and Caleb right now.
I could continue to build out Chicago. I could continue to build out Buffalo.
No, I'm saying you're going to build them out simultaneously. But I'm doing Lovejoy and Caleb right now, or Lovejoy or Caleb and Swift, if that's where the board says.
Caleb and Swift right now?
Yeah, I declared that you are Buffalo and Chicago.
Are you sure Swift, or are you sure Caleb right now?
Well, look at your board. Is he gonna? If he comes back to you, I would take Loveland. If you think he's gonna come back to you, take Loveland.
I think he'll come back because there's only one other player that doesn't have a quarterback. So I'm gonna take Loveland there.
All right, you're rolling the dice on Caleb. That's the risk of that.
Yeah, but if it ends up being a Buffalo,
but you also just took Swift and Loveland. You basically just said I'm taking Chicago. There's no value left here, or the peak value's gone.
But now the question is, do I build out? Do I also build out San Francisco?
No, I would stay in the lane of solely Buffalo and Chicago from here on in.
Okay.
Take the two highest scoring offenses from games that have the chance. Because I definitely think Buffalo scores the most points in the AFC this week, and they're probably third overall in the week. Behind the
we shall forever call him Lovejoy.
That's right.
I can't wait. So this guy's got almost all Rams plus some Stevenson action. Wow, that guy went Seattle. That sucks for that guy. Because he was probably trying to build out Seattle, Bo Nix. Ugh.
See, I'd take Caleb now because the quarterbacks are going. I mean, when Darnold's going.
If I get a chance here. He's going to definitely take Bo Nix here. All right. So
I know you hate Kincaid, so I'm not going to put him on your menu. But I'm looking at Moore.
At who?
Burton. At Moore or Burton. One of the Chicago receivers.
Oh, yeah. We're going to take DJ Moore, but we're going to keep our eye on Juwan Jennings too.
Yeah, no one looks like they're doing San Francisco.
No, because I took McCaffrey. You don't really want to build San Francisco without McCaffrey.
I don't even want to build San Francisco, period.
Yeah, there's reason to believe that that's not going to be a good time.
No, I think that those two games, the Niners, Seattle, and Houston Patriots are going to be stupid low scoring. Like, no one's going to want to watch them.
It feels like that, family. The more I build these, the more it feels like that. Because Chicago's offense.
I totally disagree with that, family. I don't think you want Seahawks. I don't think there's going to be enough points in that game compared to the juggernaut.
No. What he's saying though is that if you build enough players on the opposite side offensively to advance you, that like if you build, like I said at the beginning of the show, if you build like Barner and Charbonnet, for example, Seattle has such a good defense that they're most likely going to contend for the Super Bowl. So, like,
I don't think that they can outscore either one of them.
Brock Purdy's still on the table. He can stay on the table. And
again, this is the fundamental argument, family. I don't think Seattle's in the Super Bowl. I think it's going to be the winner of the Bears-Rams game. Knowing that they have to go to Seattle for the championship. I know that. Or either one is hosting the Niners, which would be wild. Again, let's never discount the possibility Sam Darnold literally throws it away. Because he's Sam Darnold, and some things just don't leave you. He's still.
This is very clearly just Bears, guys. We have just built a team that is very clearly just Bears.
You have 5 of them, right? You don't have 6.
I did watch the Rams game.
I did. It was awesome. That's how I know there's going to be 1,000,000 points in the Chicago Rams game.
And I think that when it comes down to it, the cold weather is really going to play a factor into this. So, like right now, I'm building out
I think Chicago's winning.
Right now, I'm building out these Chicago teams. But if the weather shifts, there's going to be it's going to be rough. And I want to build out another player from another team here because I built enough Chicago. I'm probably going to take Brandon Cooks here.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because you got the Buffalo side.
But I also could take like Woody if this ends up being a Chicago-Houston Super Bowl.
Woody's a fine advancement piece. They're going to run like crazy in that game.
So that's.
But he's not going to outscore McCaffrey. You take Woody with the assumption McCaffrey's not there for you next round, and Woody is.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, but if it's a Buffalo-Chicago Super Bowl, Brandon Cooks will run ham over Chicago. He will be so open.
They all will be open, dude. The Bears. The Bears are a takeaway or bust defense, which is why they let up so many points.
That's what we're going to do. We're going to take Cooks. And hopefully there will be a bajillion points scored. If not, I'm kind of screwed because I got like 4 Chicago wide receivers here. I have basically Chicago's offense without Kamanungai and Cole Kmet. So,
Which is what you want. And then are you taking Marks with your last pick?
No, I ended up taking Brandon Cooks.
That's right. You're around short. Okay.
Yeah, we ended up taking Brandon Cooks. The reason for Brandon Cooks is that game theory dictates that if Chicago ends up making it to the Super Bowl with Buffalo, Chicago's wide receivers have a much better chance to be successful. So we, opening the door to players like Shakir, Cooks, Keon Coleman in these tournaments is
that would be a wild Super Bowl.
It would be pretty smart if they can make it. The Bears ended up, like I said, bared down in the second half of that game. But if they can make it, Dobbs still had 29 points. Christian Watson still had like 15. So there's a possibility that having Buffalo, Chicago, from an ideal perspective, the Super Bowls that you want to see from a fantasy perspective would probably be Buffalo, Rams, Buffalo, Chicago. Those would be the 2 Super Bowls from a fantasy perspective that you would probably want to see. In addition, Drake May versus Rams or Drake May versus Chicago as well. Whoever comes out of that Chicago Rams game, that's who you want to see ideally in the Super Bowl if you are playing playoff best ball fantasy football.
Yeah, that's right.
If Seattle ends up making the Super Bowl, that from a fantasy perspective, I don't really I haven't built a lot of teams that have, Rashid Shaheed or
I don't see how Seattle-based teams make it out of this round. And that's, again, I understand that there are so many examples that you got to have.
Seattle and San Francisco-based teams make it out if you build probably Buffalo.
Yeah, well, I think what you need to do is you take the top end pieces, you take McCaffrey, you take JSN, and then you got to build Chicago to get out of this week. And if they die, so be it.
Before we go off, and guys, scheduling note, we might come back Thursday to talk a little bit more before the games start. But in all likelihood, we might be on just next Monday or Tuesday. But what are the lines?
I think it'll be next week.
What are the lines in these games right now?
Let's pull them up here for you, Bob. But they're
so the Buffalo-Denver game has an over of 46.5, with Denver being a 1.5 point favorite. Seattle is a 7.5 point favorite over San Francisco with a 46.5 over and under. Houston, New England has the lowest over and under on the slate at 41.5. Houston is underdog, 3-point underdog, and Chicago is a 3.5 point underdog to the Rams with a 51.5.
I'm taking the points. I'm taking the
points
there. I'm taking the points in Houston. Chicago.
Vegas always builds in weather when they build in these lines as well. And so I want to go to that.
They just basically said it doesn't matter.
Hold on. I want to go
to a huge over under for a playoff
weather of these games. So the Rams game is going to be around 18 degrees. So that's
about what it was last week when they played Green Bay.
That does kind of favor Chicago a little bit, I would say. Then you're looking at the Texans game. That's a 35-degree temperature with 26% chance of precipitation. The Seahawks game will be clear, supposedly, and the Bills game will be clear as well. It's the best temperatured game on the slate. I'm surprised it's not higher in the point total on the slate. I do think that game probably goes over, but not by much. That's going to be interesting to watch that game. I'm really excited for these games. All right, guys. So, like I said, hold on. Buffalo, Chicago Super Bowl. We buy two hungry, obsessed fan bases. Absolutely. Bills not on at 4 a.m. Monday this week. That's good for you, family. And imagine next week we're talking Denver, Houston. That would be depressing as fuck. I would agree with that. That would not be that is a very likely matchup. And I think in that scenario that
it'd be Houston.
I think in that scenario, actually, like both of those defenses, again, Houston's defense is stronger, but Denver's offense, because they throw a million times more than CJ Stroud, they're going to have, I think, slightly more opportunities. So that one will be, it might go Houston. That I'm really
going to be in Houston. The plan Buffalo will be great.
All right, guys. And like we said, we might not be back this week, but if we are, it'd be on Thursday. If not, we'll be back next Monday or Tuesday to talk all about this. And we didn't even talk about Mike Tomlin today, Joe. He's out of here.
That's all right. We got time next week for that. I'll see you guys next week, y'all.
Peace out.